All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 14th ever episode of the Failing to Success in Multifamily Show, a podcast where we appreciate, discuss, and reflect on the setbacks real estate investors have had leading up to their success. Today, I have the absolute privilege and honor to have Pressley Hambrick on as a guest. Now, I got introduced to Pressley at a conference in Vegas. When was it? 3 months ago now? 3 months ago?
Wow,
Time flies, right?
yeah, wow, it has been that long.
Time flies. So 3 months ago, which was tailored for aspiring and experienced fund managers. Now, Presley focuses in multifamily, commercial, and development in the Texas market. And today, he's going to tell us more about how he is navigating the success and challenges that comes with finding his first deal, right? Absolutely.
We'll get into that.
Yes. Super excited to have him on the show. Um, you know, However, right, do not let it go over your head that he is currently launching a $100 million fund, which I am very excited to hear about later on in the show as well. I can't wait for you all to hear his journey, his successes, but most of all, and the reason why we're here today, his failures as he continues to reach his goals within multifamily. Pressley, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Something very significant hit me in your statement. Us as people, especially entrepreneurs, run and we feel attacked when we hear failure. We see the shirts and the picture frames that you can buy at Walmart about live happy and so on and so forth. But we have this almost taboo nature about failure. It's something that we should not want to encounter. We need to run from, and that is how dare you fail at something? But everybody who's ever been successful has failed, and it should be something that you embrace. My wife and I had a conversation actually last week about he's technically one. He'll be two next week. So for all you parents, he's still a 1-year-old. So our 1-year-old was making a mess, and we were kind of laughing at him. It was cute, and my wife said something. Oh, he's trying to be a bad baby. Stop, don't be bad, baby. I said he's not being a bad baby. He's being a scientist. Because I'm a science nerd, and I listen to Neil deGrasse. How do you say his name? Neil Tyson, the astrophysicist, and he also made a comment on that, saying that your kids, they're doing science experiments when they're breaking stuff. And if we learn to embrace that as a culture of entrepreneurs, that takes us to a whole nother level of thinking, and it removes at least a small layer of fear away. Because when you're doing your first deal, what stops you a lot of times is some kind of fear of not being able to succeed, not being able to raise the money, not being able to execute the business plan. But if you understand that your steps to success are built on failure, then I think we will be a lot more comfortable with that word. So thank you for bringing me on. I'm honored, and thank you for changing the mindset of us entrepreneurs and all of the newbie investors and just people in general to understand that you got to fail to succeed. I appreciate that.
Man, amazing. Such a good point that you make, man. And it's true. A lot of individuals, not just entrepreneurs, but a lot of individuals run away from failure. And I could not have said what you said more perfectly, because we should actually embrace failure as part of growth, but as part of also moving up. So thank you so much, man. But I think, frankly, I did a pretty bad job at introducing you, Pressley. So please give us an idea of who Pressley Hambrick is.
I have an extremely colorful story, a very unique story, I guess, to use at my advantage now. I was born in Houston, and I always laugh at my bios because I think people read and and they might not, but I always think people reading it says he's going to start at birth. It's going to be a long bio. Born in Houston, back and forth between Houston and Detroit basically my whole life. Up until high school, went to high school in Detroit, where I got my pilot's license technically for the first time. But it was still Detroit. So I went to an amazing school. My grandparents owned 2 apartment buildings. They owned a 13 unit and a 50 unit. I literally started working, doing adult jobs at the age of probably 7. Started working at 5, doing kid stuff, sweeping, helping my grandmother paint, doing make ready for the properties. But by the age of 7, I was doing drywall. I was laying tile. I remember at the age of 9 and 10, bringing up rolls of carpet up the stairs by myself. So I'm pretty healthy physically. Doing that from 7 to about 19, get you in shape. So I learned how to navigate the more so of the rental, dealing with tenants, dealing with property management issues, obviously, because I'm a kid. So they're not going to involve me in the money part. I did get to count the rent.
There you go.
Which it was fun to see, thousands of dollars wrapped up. It's Detroit, everybody pays in cash.
That's the fun part.
That was the beginning stages of my upbringing. And everyone on my father's side is an entrepreneur. They all own something for the most part. So I came from a very weird mixed background. One day I would think we were rich because my grandparents stayed in a beautiful 2-story home on the west side of Detroit. West side is known usually as back then it was the nicer, well-to-do side. East side, which a lot of cities, because of the way the wind flows, the factories tend to be on the east side because the wind blows, to the east. So you don't want to put a factory on the west side, and blow across the whole city. And the east side is normally a little bit more, let's just say that's where the hustlers come from. That's where the grit comes from. So my grandparents had a motor home and a boat. But we were still experiencing, more so on my dad's side, bouts of poverty. I remember when I was real small, my mom would tell me a story. One day, all we had to eat was a half a can of beans. And she won't tell me how we only ended up at a half. I'm like, you didn't have a whole can of beans to split? So she must have ate the other half, or we must have ate the other half maybe the day before. But and that was all in the same time. I remember one Christmas not getting anything for Christmas because we didn't have any money. And I was a happy-go-lucky kid, so it didn't bother me. So I had a very interesting childhood growing up, or lack thereof, because I worked literally from 6 or 7 to about, I started college late 17 years old to 18. So really up until then, I did, adult work, which I'm not going to say I loved, but built a lot of character. I don't regret it. I didn't regret it then. I kind of enjoyed working with my dad. So I got planted the early seeds of work ethic, and this is how you change a property and turn a property. So from that, just to kind of give you the short bio, I have been told since I was about 10 years, man, you're going to be a millionaire before you're 18, before you're 21. Where 18 came and 21 came. And now I understand why. But, I kind of always had a dark cloud over me figuratively because I was like, man, I hadn't made it yet because everybody told me I was supposed to make it. I had business cards at 7 years old. I've always wanted to be successful. I only ever think about business. I only ever think about numbers, ever. Yeah. I've been with my wife 20 years. We've been married 15. Wow. And 90% of the time, if we're not talking about kids, I'm talking about the business. This is just when God made the mold, he put a whole bunch of business stuff in there. So I said, you know what? I know real estate stuff. I know how to do that. I want to feel accomplished and do my own thing. So went to college, met another gentleman, and he had told me how he paid for his semester of college by doing real estate stuff. And I was like, man, that sounds like a good idea. It wasn't the stuff that I did. I didn't start wearing nice clothes until my early 20s. Every piece of clothing outside of me going to school had paint on it, or some drywall, or the grease that you put around the pipe. I was always dirty. Um, I remember going to church one day, and the bishop was like, "Son, you okay?" Because I looked homeless. That's how bad it was. But anyway, I dropped out of college my first semester. Never went to class. Had straight A's. I don't know, a 3.9 or whatever. I had a really high GPA. So I was really smart. No one told me I was smart. I didn't realize I had a pretty bright mind until after I met my wife. Dropped out of college and started brokering mortgage notes. And then from that, that was kind of a thing. It was a trend, kind of like wholesaling became a thing and a trend. And I went from that to, we started a detailing business in Detroit. And then I changed it from detailing to an auto enthusiast country club. And I brought that to Houston.
Okay.
That did amazing. Music moguls as clients. I had royal princes, not princesses, princes as clients, politicians. So the business was successful, but I really wanted to make it bigger than what the area that I was in would allow. Texas is a state where they will spend $2 million on a car, but they won't spend $50,000 on a type of service. That's more of a Florida, a California, a New York, Georgia. They spend money on appearance and services, not so much Texas. Texas, they'll go back to their $20 million ranch and be fine, going deer hunting or whatever, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't catering to my business. So I went from that to a tech company, because being in the automotive industry and having those connections and friends at the Lamborghini club and the Ferrari club, and knowing those individuals, I met a gentleman named G. Laree, who's actually trying to start he's bringing his fashion over to Houston. He's an international artist, and me and him teamed up to do a tech company, which he founded, and he brought me on to kind of help build and grow, because I had the mind for it. I was already a techie type nerd. It was in the renewable energy sector. And still my friend, I talked to the guy a couple of days ago, got out of it because I didn't like the direction he wanted to take it, which it wasn't a bad direction. I just didn't like that direction. And I felt in my spirit something saying, okay, it's time to go back to real estate. Fast forward now, we're in 2019 and I'm in real estate. Everything else is doing well. And because I'm a nerd, I took a deep dive into multifamily, because I already know real estate. I already know single family. I watched my dad, flip houses and rent houses, for 10 years, when I was a kid. So I knew that. I knew wholesaling, but I did not know multifamily, because even though we owned a multifamily, I didn't know, the business side of it. So I took about 6 months of extreme, intense learning into multifamily, reading for hours a day, YouTube for hours a day. We now have a course where we teach people how to be a syndicator. Just because I'm a natural mentor. I've been mentoring for 15 years. I didn't realize this until I was writing my bio about being a coach. But I have literally been mentoring since my early 20s, I think. Some in ministry. I've started my own nonprofit to be able to coach. I've mentored billionaires. I've mentored people trying to figure out how to get a tax ID number. So my brain wasn't on starting a course to make money, because I've been teaching people my whole life for free. So anyway, did the deep dive into multifamily, and I even got to the point where I collected so much information before we started the course. But when I started teaching people for free how to learn how to be a syndicator, I could just send them links. Like, I have a playlist on YouTube that's like 80 videos, and each video is like an hour, 45 minutes, an hour and a half. And a lot of those videos I've watched multiple times to fully understand the depth of what goes into a syndication and an acquisition and how the numbers work, because I'm a numbers guy. So I'm self-taught in that sense. And then I've taken the years, that was all in 2019. And I've taken all the years, we're now in 2022, of everything I learned about how to market, how to brand, how to find investors, how to find deals, how to talk to brokers. Because what I found was the information that is presented to you through what's called valuetainment. I'm sorry, not valuetainment, edutainment. And side note, this is how other investors and syndicators, it's kind of what we're doing now, is edutainment. And there's nothing wrong with it, it's a form of branding and marketing. But most of those times when you hear, I'll just call them the gurus, when they're teaching on that YouTube video of how to calculate cap rate or how to calculate a IRR, they don't give a majority of time the gold nuggets that it took me having to be in this industry to find out. I've been to many conferences, meetups, all type of information gathering events. And I've heard almost all of them, okay, today we're going to teach you how to find investors. And they don't. They all say basically the same thing, which is meet people, start with your mom and your dad. And sir, I grew up in Detroit and everybody I know is poor. I don't have anybody I can go to. I had technically what we thought was a rich uncle, but he wasn't really rich. He was just, he's a struggling business owner. He owned a barbershop and technically he owned a party store next door, but nobody went in there. So it inspired me to be great, but I don't have a rich uncle. I don't have nobody to call. My family a lot of times will call me, would help with something. So to start with mom and dad, start with friends. Well, I came from the stereotypical Detroit. Most of my friends dead or in jail or, not doing well. Since I did go to a really good school in Detroit, I probably have more percentage of people I went to school with who are doing better than most. A lot of them went to the military and are doing very well. None of them live in Michigan anymore. But I live that stereotypical life. So talk to mom and dad, you talk to your friends, and a lot of times in other cities and other cultures and other places, that works. And I don't take away from that, but that is not a fix for everybody. That's 1-2% of the equation. So then they would go from there and they would say, hey, well, you need to go out and meet people. Yes, which, that's a thing. But that is a very slow process. It is part of the process, but it is not the process. And the gold nuggets, the sentence that bonds and joins all of this stuff together, they never give those out. So through the course, and not that I'm necessarily trying to pitch the course, because I did it for 15 years for free, and I did it for multifamily for a strong 1.5. That it was always something missing. And now I have students coming to me, and I have students who've paid for big programs who their mentor never gave them a deal analyzer. They use the mentor's deal analyzer, which is, for people who don't know, a deal analyzer is basically an Excel spreadsheet where you input the formulas. So when you know what the numbers are for your property, you input the numbers you do know, and it'll tell you your returns. So I'm like, your mentor used his software. So what happens when you're finished with the program? How does that work? And that's just one instance. So I went from this really deep, almost like looking for my soul in multifamily, because that's just who I am naturally. I'm just a nerd. If I'm not doing anything multifamily, I'm usually listening to something about quantum physics right now. I'm really excited about the James Webb Telescope and the findings and stuff. So I'm a nerd, and also a car nerd as well. So yeah, that's kind of my journey and the macro failures and successes that I've had. I haven't had any huge, tremendous failures. I've had failures in the part that this didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. Now we're in 2019. For the most part, I understand how deals work, but now I'm missing the boat. I'm missing half of the boat. Pre 2018 in Houston, you could buy a door $60,000. In a class C minus area, $40,000. The people who are already on this train, who are already kind of know how this stuff works and already know how to find investors. And for everyone out there, you're not alone when you're trying to figure out where do these magical investors live? Because my whole life, I've heard people speak about, yeah, we've met with investors, and it was almost like a unicorn. Like I hear them all the time, but I don't know if they really exist. Do I have to go to New York to meet an investor? And I remember when I met my first investor, and I'll shout his name out, Doug Sinatier, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, reached out to me when I had the car company because I wanted to expand and fully bring it over to the country club side of the auto enthusiast part. And he sat down with me. And so that was really my first meeting of this is what an investor is. Really, investors are everybody. And that's another thing that we teach. So your mom and dad are investors, but it just depends on your family. Because sometimes, you can say, hey, mom and dad, do you have 10 grand or whatever? And sometimes mom and dad just might not be the people. Sometimes you got to go find, your own people. So the backtrack is 2019. And my weakness is I think so big. It's not that it's not realistic. It's maybe you should scale it down. And I have those conversations with a lot of people. I have the opposite problem that most other people have. Most people don't dream big enough. I kind of probably dream too big. And it's not a bad thing. You just have to understand what your resources are and what they will allow you to do at the moment. And if you have a dream to get to 100, but your resources are allowing you to do 20, I have learned and I have accepted, which is the most difficult part, do 20 first, so now you can get to 100. Because if your resources are providing you enough information, capital, leverage, and whatever for 20, you can't put 20 into 100. It won't fit. You'll never. It's like I remember I got a loan for the Auto Enthusiast Country Club, and I just wanted to see what they would give my business. And I think I was looking for $50,000 to do something. It was like to buy some really nice equipment or something like that. And they gave me $5,000. And I was like, I have $5,000. This is not going to do anything. So same thing. If you have enough resources for 20, or if you have enough resources for 5,000, utilize that, understand where you're at, and just map your way to 100. Because if you just say, bypass that 20 or that 5,000 and say, I'm going straight to 100, it's going to be exponentially more difficult, or in my new favorite catchphrase from Elon Musk, orders of magnitude more difficult. So understanding where you are, who's around you, who can help. I had to learn how to delegate because I built all of this by hand. This was literally studs. I've built cars from scratch. I built websites when they were still only using Dreamweaver, and I had to teach myself code. So my brain doesn't look at a situation as who can I call to fix this? Who can I call to solve this problem? My brain looks at it as, oh, well, now we need to learn how to, as I'm looking into my DSLR, now we need to learn how to operate a DSLR. And those are rabbit holes that sometimes you shouldn't go down. The rabbit hole that I'm thankful I didn't go down was Photoshop, because I would be spending hours trying to edit pictures and stuff. And now they have a lot of cinematic software to edit, videos and have them amazing quality. I've consciously stayed away from that. So back again, 2019, and I have a decision. I'm equipped now with knowledge to get into the multifamily realm. What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I chose to not buy a 100-unit or 50-unit or 150-unit, because I found a absolutely amazing opportunity to do a development. So we've been working on a development since about 2020.
We'll take a dive into that, but before we go into your project, which is very, very exciting,
Mm-hmm.
I want to take a step back a little bit, right? Obviously, a lot to unpack in what you've been able to share.
I have very long answers. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay. And a lot of great solid nuggets there about your overall mindset and how you operate as a business owner, which is very, very inspirational. So basically, when you had started, right, you were taken on by your parents who had apartment buildings, and you were learning the ropes, right? From, I think you mentioned, from the age of 7 to the age
Yeah.
of 15 years old,
Yeah.
you were working with your grandparents, which I think to a lot of individuals, right, they would they wouldn't necessarily stay in the business, right, just because that may not be of interest to them, which you didn't, right? You after the age of 19, I think you um, went into other ventures. But then what
Yeah.
I find interesting is that you actually are now coming back. You came back to the multifamily space. So I'm curious to, find out why. Like, why do you now see multifamily as the vehicle that you want to go into?
Amazing question. So, two answers to that. The first thing is, you mentioned you started in real estate and you got out and you found your way back. Well, to the human mindset, that is very common in certain instances. Real estate, cars, um, and there's a few of them. I can't think of the other couple, but certain things that if your parents did it or if your family did it, you tend to do it.
Mm,
Real estate is one of them.
yeah.
I don't know why. Um, yeah, I really don't know why, but that is it's just like cars. If you have a parent or friend at a very, very early age who really immersed you into that, that field, and that just being around cars all the time and working on them, it's not something that really leaves. It's different from, yeah, my dad had a Camaro SS when I grew up, he loved that car. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
Versus my dad had a Camaro and we went to car events and you created memories. And I remember helping my dad change the oil all the time. And when you get pulled into that environment that early, a lot of times it sticks.
Yeah.
Um, Now, for me, the reason I went back and the reason I chose multifamily, I've really had one mantra. I have a couple, but the one that is the most prevalent is scale. I don't do anything if it doesn't scale. That's why I got in and out of wholesale really quick. I got in and out of rentals really, really quick. Mortgage notes, even the car business. I got out of that. One, because I realized the Texas mindset. I'll give you a 20-second funny story. Through my crazy clientele, a friend of one of the clients had just came back from a trip with a client. And he said, man, they don't have the type of service here that they do in Miami. And I was like, what do you mean? Now, mind you, I am basically a 12-year-old in an adult body. I don't go out. I've been to the club twice in my life. I've been to one concert and my wife and I have been together. She was 19, I was 20. So anything adult, I don't do. I've never heard a whole Drake song. How about that? So he said, "Yeah, man, we went to a club, and I think it was Miami, it was somewhere in Florida, and their bottle service there was 50,000. I didn't even know what bottle service was. Wow. We said their bottle service there was 50,000. They don't even have anything like that here in Houston." And I was like, "What is that? Like, break this down to me. What do they have that's 50,000 that we don't have?" And when he explained it to me, it just gave me that epiphany that Texans don't have that let me show you mindset, which is not saying that there's anything wrong with Miami or wrong with that thinking. If you got it, definitely. If you don't got it, you need to figure some stuff out. You need to talk to Jesus or something. But so that's what changed my mindset. Now, I also realized I couldn't scale this concept. Mm-hmm. And if I did, it would be very difficult. I would basically have to have country clubs all throughout the United States. Well, had already done an in-depth business plan, and golf courses were failing, like miserably. So I'm like, it doesn't make sense to do this everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I can't scale this. Can't scale rental properties. You can. It's not as easy to do as multifamily. For the most part, you can only get 4 homes under 4 residential homes under basically a mortgage. So if you go to the bank, unless they're doing a portfolio loan, most banks won't lend you money on more than 4 homes. They'll say, well, you need to pay one off, you need to do something. It's not the same thing in commercial. So as I understood that, and I understood even deeper the tax sheltering laws, the depreciation overshadowing the income on your passive income throughout the year, and then being able to take the profit when you exit and put it into another property, like all these things, I'm like, I can scale.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay taxes.
Right.
Passive income, generational wealth, like it checked all my boxes. That's so awesome. I spoke to a student 2 or 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. And they were asking me, how much is your course? I said, you're asking the wrong question. I get the question, and it's a knee-jerk question, because how much is the car? How much is the house? That you're trying to associate value with price, which I understand, but you're still asking the wrong question. I said, I have no problem telling you how much it costs. I'm not trying to hide a price from you. Mm-hmm. I said, but I want to change your thinking, because remember, I'm a mentor. If you can't tell by how much I talk. I said, the question you should be asking is really 2 questions. First major question is, how many people in what you do become successful? So the specific question is, how many people in real estate become millionaires? Real estate has created the most amount of millionaires. And I charge this to direct marketing companies. Okay, you show me how to make $1 million. How many people made $1 million? I know 5 of y'all made it, because y'all started the company, and you got in when the company was, a year old, and there weren't that many people. So of course you're going to get lifted up as people get under you. But as a whole, how many people does this work for? Real estate has a really, really, really high number and high percentage for that. It has created the most millionaires. That should be your first question.
Absolutely. Second
question is, what is the time frame that it will take me from where I'm at now to become successful? Now, the answer is really, I can't answer that. But what I can tell you is I can show you how the numbers work. But what you should understand is it all depends on how hard you work. Because if you're underwriting deals between 8 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning, and you have a few hours during the day to call brokers, to brand yourself, if you're putting everything you got into it, it's going to be a shorter time than somebody who's doing this an hour a day. Both of you guys are going to be successful. But if you're looking at 20 deals a day and they're only looking at 1 deal, then obviously you're going to find a deal faster. You're going to do more deals. So the short answer is, I stuck with multifamily, and I love multifamily because it's something that I can scale.
Absolutely.